So, when we talk about the US-China rivalry, what's the first thing that usually comes to mind? For most of us, it's probably trade wars, right? Or maybe that big race for tech supremacy?
And look, you're not wrong. Those things are a huge, huge deal. But if we really want to understand what's shaping this long-term competition, we've got to dig a little deeper. We need to look at the map, at the strategic geography that's kind of the foundation for everything else. So today, we're going to look at what's beyond the headlines, check out the global map, talk about other tools of power, and try to understand the deeper trains at play.
All right, first up, let's get beyond those daily headlines. For decades, a huge piece of America's global power has come from one thing: its dominant influence over the world's major sea routes. I mean, think about it. Controlling who ships what where, that has been a cornerstone of U.S. strategy. Now, China knows this. They know they're vulnerable on these sea lanes. So what do? Instead of trying to take the U.S. on directly at sea, which is a huge challenge, they've gone a different route, literally. They've been building this massive network of land-based pathways through their Belt and Road Initiative. We're talking new rail lines, highways, and pipelines, all stretching across Eurasia. Now, let's be super clear here. This isn't about replacing sea trade, not at all. The real goal is diversification. It's about giving China more options, making them more resilient so they're not totally dependent on those sea routes to get to global markets. Okay, so we have these two competing strategies, one on sea, one on land. Where do they clash? Well, their interests overlap in a few key places, and one of the most critical flashpoints is Iran. I mean, just look at where Iran is on a map. It's sitting at this incredibly important geographic crossroads, linking Central Asia straight to the Persian Gulf. That location gives it the potential to be this vital land bridge for trade, a way to get goods down toward the Indian Ocean. And this is where you really see the two sides think differently. For China, Iran is a key piece of the puzzle, right? An important partner in building out that big land-based network. But for the United States, Iran's position has major implications for regional stability, global energy markets, and the entire balance of power in the Middle East. All right, let's switch gears. Geography is a huge part of this story, but it's not the only strategic tool being used in this competition. Let's talk about something called rare earth elements. China has an incredibly strong position in processing these materials, and they are absolutely essential for, well, pretty much everything, from our smartphones and electric cars to advanced defense systems. But here's the really interesting part. It's not that China has all the rare earth minerals in the ground. Lots of countries do. China's real power, its leverage, comes from its dominance in processing them. It's not a weapon like a missile, but it gives them some serious influence over global supply chains. Okay, so we've got resources, but there's another major tool of power we have to talk about: money, finance. The US dollar is still the king of the hill, right? It's the world's main reserve currency, and that gives the US a massive advantage. Now, you hear a lot about countries moving away from the dollar, and while some are starting to diversify, we're talking about a really, really slow-moving train. This is not some dramatic shift that's happening tomorrow. And even if you look at a group like BRICS, that's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, they aren't on the same page about creating some new single currency. Actually, countries like India are openly against the idea. And China? They seem much more focused on just getting more people around the world to use their own currency, the renminbi. So where is all this headed? What does it all mean for the future? Well, let's talk about some of the deeper trends. A big one that groups like the World Trade Organization are flagging is the risk that global trade could start to break apart, to get more fragmented. And what would that look like? Well, if countries start pulling into these tighter economic blocs, it would fundamentally reshape global supply chains and push us toward a much more regionalized world. Look, nothing is set in stone. The future isn't written yet. But when you understand these deep structural forces, the geography, the money, the trade, the tech, you get a much, much clearer map of where global politics might be headed over the next few decades.
And that's really the whole point, isn't it? Real geopolitical analysis is all about spotting these deeper currents that are moving just below the surface of the day-to-day headlines.
Because once you get a handle on the underlying strategies, on the realities of the map, all those crazy headlines you see every day, they start to click into place. The whole big picture of how our world is changing just becomes so much clearer. Okay, just our standard heads up. Everything in this explainer is for informational purposes. What you heard today comes from the source material we're analyzing and doesn't necessarily reflect the views of this channel. As always, we encourage you to do your own reading and research.
Hey, if you got something out of this breakdown, it would be awesome if you could hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss the next one. We really do want to hear what you think, so drop a comment below. Thanks so much for watching.